Hello, everyone, and welcome back to April Adventures? Yeah, April Adventures. I'm surrounded by books right now, so I don't even really know where to turn or which book to pick up. But yeah, it's back. It's the old event that I made last year when I was just a fresh, new, young booktuber on the block, called April Adventures, in which I celebrate adventure books / the spirit of adventure itself. This year, needless to say, if you've been following my channel, I'm not nearly as active as I was earlier because I'm more busy. I have a full-time job. I have other things in life that I do, which is crazy. I'm sorry. I'm not to be cheating on my booktube friends, but I guess we all have different hobbies in life. But I definitely wanted to continue doing this because it was so much fun last year, and even though I won't be able to make giant, big musical productions like I did with my 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea video, which had its own music video and original song at the beginning, I can just talk about books. So if you're watching, you're welcome to follow along. Because I'm so inactive on BookTube, I feel like it'd be disingenuous for me to really say, everyone come with me, if I really not going to be making that many videos. So, but, watch along if you want, follow along if you want. Let's celebrate adventures. The way I want to kick off April Adventures this year, 2026, is by showing you every single book that I brought with me to Japan. I've moved to Japan. I mentioned that in my Moby Dick video, but if you're not really a Mobster, which is what I call my Moby Dick fans starting now, if you're not a Mobster, you probably didn't get that announcement, but I've moved abroad, and instead of just taking a Kindle like a sane human, I brought a heck ton of physical books. Many of them are very large. And, that caused me some grief when I was at Haneda, Tokyo International Airport, and I had a 49.8 pound luggage towed behind one arm and a 49.8 pound luggage towed behind the other arm. Look at these arms, and these are pretty skinny arms. And a tote bag of Trader Joe's tote bag full of books, a hiking backpack full of recording equipment and books. Everything else had books in it. And I was running through trying to make my exchange, going through customs, sweating so much. I felt so bad. All the Japanese people in suits around me were like, "Who is this sweaty young American?" But I did it. I made it here, and I brought all these books, and now I get to show you them. And now they also get to sit on my shelf on this little. Actually, I'll show you at the end of the video what they looked like lined up. Right now, they're all next to me on this couch. But having physical books just feels like you're taking along a bunch of little friendly spirits with you wherever you go. I'm sure everyone watching this who has, a physical book collection feels the same way. You stand at your bookshelf and you feel happy. You just feel good. So I've organized them on my shelf by size. When you have a small bookshelf with you, you don't have to do any Dewey Decimal Systeming. You can just kind of do it, by color, by any whimsy. So I just did it, I guess height more than size. It's not like length of the book, but however tall they are, and then it kind of gets smaller. So they're all next to me, kind of whimsically splattered. And I guess what I'll start with are the books that I came over reading. The first one, of course, is Moby Dick. I brought this copy of Moby Dick, which I went out and bought new, which I almost never do, for my read-along of Moby Dick. We are now at chapter 51 in the read-along, and I'll make the next video hopefully pretty soon. But you don't need me to talk to you any more about Moby Dick when every single read-along episode is like an hour and a half. I love this book. It is a joy to read. It is bottomless. It is hypnotizing. It deserves to be read at least once in your lifetime. And if you ever want someone to joyously windbag about it for forever and ever, you can watch the read-along that I'm making with it. It's Moby Dick by Herman Melville. Then, the other thing that I've been reading, slowly, is the complete works of Michel de Montaigne, which I've also talked a little bit about on this channel. I don't know when I'm talking to you guys how much, introducing I need to do, or I ought to do. But I guess it's fine to just talk about it a little bit, because even if you know the background of this book, it's kind of fun to hear other people talk about it too. But This guy, Michel de Montaigne, was writing in, I think, the 16th century in France in a kind of Middle French, the same way that Chaucer would have been writing. Maybe actually later than Chaucer, because Chaucer was in like the 1350s. But he created the word essay as we know it from the French verb essayer, which means to try. So I guess essays are kind of like little tryings or tries. Just his thoughts about anything and everything, really. And the reason why this is famous, beyond the fact that he kind of created the essay as a topic, is sort of the same way, one of the same reasons why I love Melville, and maybe I'm learning who I am as a reader a little bit, is that his voice is so friendly. He's such a good guy. My mom was showing me a book about famous people that she had, and one of the things it said about Montaigne is that very few people in history ever become famous for being a good guy. Almost no one becomes famous for being a good guy. Jesus Christ, maybe. I guess religious figures, in a way. But they have something to teach. Montaigne is very clear about the fact that he's really not trying to instruct morally. He's just kind of exploring himself. That's his whole goal with the essays. And the topics of the essays are really fascinating. They're all over the place. I'll read you a couple of so I have read, actually, how much have I read? I'm on page 207, so I read a fair sampling. He has one all of sadness, or of idleness, of liars. He really hates lying. On the punishment of cowardice, of drunkenness, of thumbs. So cool. He wrote this in 3 different sections of his life, and he changes over the course of those revisions. And throughout the book, as you read these essays, you're always going to see in whatever edition you have, pretty much, behind every paragraph or sentence will have a little bit of an A, a B, or a C denoting what years those opinions come from. So some of them come from 1580, and then A maybe is 1580 or something, and then C is 1588 or something. And he kind of shifts away from his more stoic beliefs towards a more genial, easygoing, just kind of chill philosophy, if you even want to call it a philosophy. He never once calls himself a philosopher, I think, in this book, as far as I know. But he's always quoting Seneca and Cicero and Ovid. And the last thing I'll say about Montaigne, besides the fact that he's just so lovely to spend time with, is the craziest fun fact. His dad wanted him to speak Latin, and so hired one expert Latin tutor and a bunch of other sort of accessory tutors who were really good at Latin, but maybe not experts, and forbade any other staff in his house to speak French to him, and including his wife and his whole family. No one spoke French to Montaigne, and he was only spoken to in Latin for his childhood. So in the 16th century, there was a native Latin speaker who happened to grow up to be an incredible writer. So his knowledge of Latin texts, of the Aeneid, and his enjoyment of something like Metamorphoses would have been so much richer than pretty much any other of his contemporaries, because all of them would have had to have learned those texts instead of from the enjoyment of reading a good book like he did. They would have had to learn them with an actual whip at their backs in grammar school. He excoriates the schooling system in a chapter called On the Education of Children, which is really good, that whole chapter. And so to see that this guy who fell in love with reading through ancient Latin works that a lot of people, up until the British boarding school system in the 19th and 20th century, were still drilling into its students with corporal punishment. That's just so cool that he had that different perspective. So Michel de Montaigne, amazing writer, great company. I'll be reading this for a long time. I'm slowly going through it. I've never read a book so slowly in my whole life. I make a lot of notes on every page. Just turning to random pages here as it falls apart. Just like I give hearts to pages that I really like, and I write kind of at the bottom margins. For those of you who know my channel know that I'm really not a big fan of self-help, because I really don't like that mechanism of pleasure you get from reading self-help. I think it distracts from changing yourself. This is the closest thing, I think, that I'm coming to self-help these days, because I think I am understanding myself more as I read him. Gosh, it's so good just looking at these passages. Amazing. Michel de Montaigne, highly recommend. What I'm reading right now is Chaucer, the Canterbury Tales. what's so cool about this particular edition of the Canterbury Tales is that I had watched a video, I think by legend Steve Donahue, friend of mine on BookTube. Everyone should know him. And when I was in Maryland, in the Solomon Islands, and watched a video of his about the Canterbury Tales from his Penguin Classics, Your Daily Penguin videos, and he held up this exact edition, this Penguin Classics modernization. This is the modernization by Neville Coghill, who was one of the Inklings, one of the guys who hung out at the Eagle and Claw, or the Bird and Baby, as they called it colloquially, with J.R.R. Tolkien and C.S. Lewis. He was in that kind of friend group, which is so cool. And, he would have been hearing early drafts of the Chronicles of Narnia and the Lord of the Rings. And I basically found it. I have an inscription that has some personal information here, so I'll cover it up. But I found it, and I drew Canterbury Cathedral there at the bottom, just by looking at a picture. Not much of an artist, but it's kind of fun to draw. The next day, after watching that video, I was walking past the Little Free Library, and this was just sitting in there. And Little Free Libraries normally don't have, classics. Classics get snatched up. They normally have, religious books, Christian books, interior design books. They just don't ever seem to be that rich because, naturally the good ones get taken. And yet when I saw this there, I was like, oh, of course it's there. This is just the universe giving me the Canterbury Tales because I just learned about it. So I've been reading it. And it is just so delightful. I was forced to read this parts of these at gunpoint in school, like all of us, and I liked them. My even the books I enjoyed in school, all of the enjoyment was tempered. And now that I'm going through them myself, I'm really enjoying it. I feel almost guilty though because the way I read so much these days is on trains or at breaks at work where there's kind of loud music playing and I can focus well enough, but I'm not totally immersed sitting quietly reading. So I wonder if that's tampering my experience now, like school did in the past. But I'm enjoying it a lot. And Chaucer's voice, he's so funny and he's got such a twinkle in the eye. Montaigne doesn't really have a twinkle in the eye. Montaigne's genial and fun. He's not that funny. He can be sometimes, but his humor is very dry when it comes out. Melville can be kind of puckish, but Chaucer's really puckish. I really enjoyed just spending time with him. There's this point at which he's talking about the friar. I gotta read this to you real quick. And this friar is just not a man of God. He's just a guy who wants to get money. And this is what he says about him. But anywhere a profit might accrue, courteous he was, and lowly of service too. Natural gifts like his were hard to match. He was the finest beggar of his batch. And for his begging district paid a rent, his brethren did no poaching where he went. For though a widow mightn't have a shoe, so pleasant was his holy how d'ye do. He got his farthing from her just the same before he left, and so his income came. And of course, the first thing you'll notice if I read this to you, hello, train ticket, bookmark train ticket. The first thing you'll notice if I read this to you is, wait a minute, that sounds like modern English. And of course it is. This is not, well, I guess I should go ahead and show you now. This is not this. I also brought the original text, Canterbury Tales text, with glosses and notes. I hauled this on the Book Hall to End All Book Halls finale, episode 3 with Adam, a classic episode of the Robin Song Reads YouTube channel, and love the licentious cover. My whole plan is that I'm going to go through it, reading it just for pleasure and enjoyment in the modern English, and then I'm going to big brain it all the way through with the notes later. So maybe I'll do it right after, or maybe I'll let it sit for a little bit. I wonder what would be better. I should read the prologue in this for sure, and maybe the Miller's Tale, because the Miller's Tale is so good. The Knight's Tale is a little long. It's the longest one. But talk about enjoying books that are 700 years old. That's so cool. That's so amazing that books exist. Canterbury Tales, they're amazing. I'd recommend going through them again if you had to read them at school and you didn't like it. Read the prologue. Maybe read The Knight's Tale. Read The Miller's Tale. Because it's just bawdy and crazy and just filled with fart jokes, and it's just a joy. Yeah, okay, moving on. I guess now we're kind of getting to miscellaneous sections. I brought with me the King James Bible in the Penguin Classics edition. Of all the books that I read, this is the only one that I brought that I don't intend to read all the way through. Because, of course, the Bible, as is said everywhere, is not a book. It's a library of books with a lot of different authors. And some of those authors weren't trying to put down anything that was, that resembles anything like a story, but was a genealogy of kings, or were the legal codes and systems of governance for this, desert society that put these texts together back in the day. So those are fascinating, but they're not that fun to read, and I'm not trying to read them. I'm trying to read, Exodus and the Gospels. That's kind of what I want to read from this. I've, of course, made my way through a lot of the most famous stories in this just over the course of my life, being an American born in Alabama. But I've never really approached this book with the curiosity of a reader. And I want to, because I think it deserves that. Everything that it has to say religiously, I have a pretty good grasp on, I think, just from living in that world and from having conversations about it and reading it. And I, for the moment, know what my beliefs are in Christianity and how I feel towards it. And now I want to experience a different side of it for the beauty of its prose. And where can one do that better than with the King James edition? So, yeah, if you have a favorite part of the Bible, let me know. Let me know if you have any recommendations. I love Ecclesiastes. I think that section is so powerful. It just... it runs through you like an electric current. All right, moving on. Oh, man, this book now. This one I'm really excited to read. Needless to say, all of the books that I'm showing you right now are books that I really wanted to have because, every single book is something I have to carry. But I select them also on a slightly different criteria beyond just books that I want to read or books that I want to take abroad with me. They're books that I mostly haven't ever read. There's a couple exceptions to that. Mostly works that are not originally in English and are in a translation that I know I'll like. That was kind of the main thing, is getting good translations. And the reason why is because I knew that if I came to Japan, I'd be able to, if I wanted, find a copy of Middlemarch somewhere. I live in a pretty big city. I'm going to be able to find Middlemarch. Or I'm going to be able to, whatever. But am I going to be able to get, the John Woods translation of The Magic Mountain? Probably not. I don't know. So, this book is The Magic Mountain by Thomas Mann with John Woods translation. Viewers of this channel will know that I actually already have another edition of The Magic Mountain by the translation being done by H.T. Lowe Porter. For that edition, I made my own cover, which was really fun. And I should have made a video of all the books that I made, all the covers that I made, because I've had a lot of fun doing that. But this is, so far as I can tell, the superior translation. So, I borrowed it from my dad. This is a gift from one of his friends, who's a great guy, who was the father of a soccer friend of mine growing up. And that father, both his son, who I was friends with, is a great guy, and his dad is also a great guy, and is also a reader, which is, rare. If you just happen to meet a person, if you're my dad, and, you're a kid, me, makes a friend at soccer camp or whatever, and his dad happens to be an intellectual kind of guy that's fun to talk to and also not an a-hole, that's rare. So he gave him this book, The Magic Mountain, and I stole it to take it here because my dad didn't think he was going to read it anytime soon. And Joshua Kriba loves this book. Joshua Kriba read this book in the H.G. Lowe Porter translation twice and is now reading it in this translation, I believe. And Joshua Kriba is an amazing person, so I have a feeling this is going to be an amazing book. So I'm really, really stoked to get to this. I also, one other sort of theme of these books, beyond just the fact that a lot of them happen to be translations of texts, is that I have a sort of sense of when I want to read them throughout the course of the next year. I don't know if I'll be in Japan for longer than a year, so I'm sort of thinking, it'd be a great project to finish every book that I'm talking about here. What if I arrange them to be read kind of according to the seasons? What season does The Magic Mountain go into? Because I think of a sanatorium in the Alps and I think, oh, that's kind of wintry, right? But not necessarily. I can see it being kind of fitting into all seasons, really. When I think about fall and summer and spring, I feel like, I think the Magic Mountain could be there. And maybe it's because it takes place in this, limbo land, this sort of quasi-purgatory, not in a negative sense, but, the sanatorium is, as far as I know from the way people have talked about this book, it's not reality. It's not life on Earth. So I'm really excited. Karen Potter has recommended this so many times, so I can't wait to read this. Thank you, Karen, for your recommendations. So yeah, when you just hear about, really kind, wonderful people telling you to read a book, it makes you want to read it. And so I brought it. Moving on, we have Boccaccio's Decameron, which fits nicely alongside the Canterbury Tales, being a collection of tales told by, I guess I don't really know who's telling the stories here. Of course, in the Canterbury Tales, it's an assortment of pilgrims who are referred to by their profession. Here, I think it's noble people who are retreating away from the plague in Italy. And you know what I wonder? I should have looked this up before I started the video, I guess, but I wonder if this was published or like finished before the Canterbury Tales, because Chaucer went to Italy, and he basically his poetry became way saucier after he went to Italy, after he read Dante and Boccaccio, whereas before he had fought in France. This is Chaucer I'm speaking of. Chaucer had fought in France and been captured and learned to love the kind of romantic French poetry that, where a guy sees a woman outside of his prison cell and falls in love with her madly, so heavily that he can be in love with her for 20 years after just a glance. The French people, am I right? But the Italians were much more fun and maybe also kind of had some common sense. Am I right? Yeah, let's... Sorry to my French viewers. Je parle un peu du français. But Boccaccio seems like he's just a fun guy, too. And I've heard people tell me on BookTube comments that they really enjoyed this. I don't think that this is really ever read by anyone who's not a reader. So, unlike... canon classics get read by people who aren't readers because they're curious why they're classics. But, this is a canon classic, but it doesn't seem to have that same reputation. It also has a blurb by Leonard Barkin. How about that, Leonard Barkin? I don't know who this is. But in moving on, we have some Herman Melville. I already talked about Moby Dick. Here we have Billy Budd and the Piazza Tales. So, I can't really call Herman Melville my favorite author, because I've really only read Bartleby a couple times, and now Moby Dick, which is my favorite book. And of course, that's subject to change. I'm still learning the world of books. I don't want to have a fixed identity with anything, but point out I love Moby Dick. So, I brought with me the other works of Herman Melville in this beautiful Barnes & Noble Classics. Oh, I hope everyone's all right. I don't know if you can hear the sirens going off. I really want to read Billy Budd. In the book Why Read Moby Dick by Nathaniel Philbrook, he says casually, like in an offhand way, that Billy Budd is the second masterpiece of Herman Melville. So, I gotta read that. I wonder if this has his poetry in it. It's probably just the Piazza Tales. The Piazza Tales, I believe, includes Bartleby. Yeah, Bartleby, Benito Cereno, the Lightning Rod Man, the Incantatas, the Bell Tower, the Piazza. The other ones aren't that famous, and the other ones, I believe, aren't even that critically acclaimed. I remember Harold Bloom, who I always bring up on this channel, my favorite cantankerous gasbag. He referred, he said about the No Confidence Man that it was barely readable, and he said about Moby Dick that it's nearly perfect. So I guess Melville is a hit or miss author for a lot of people. I don't know. I wonder if I'll enjoy a lot of these stories, but I'm stoked to have this. One of the rare instances in which I brought something, a physical book that is not in translation. And another one of those examples is this, which fits perfectly alongside Herman Melville, because these two authors, Walt Whitman and Herman Melville, were alive at the same time in New York City at the same time, and yet we have no record of them having ever met or even knowing of each other's existence, which is kind of crazy. And Mr. Bloom also says the two eminent works of American literature are Leaves of Grass and Moby Dick. And Leaves of Grass, famously, was published in an original 1855 edition, which I have here, and then painstakingly reworked and tinkered over by its poet over the course of his entire life. And in one of my classrooms, in one of my classes in college with Professor Jordan Kirk, great guy, he said, this stuck with me. He said, "It's one of those tragic cases in which an author continually reworks their magnum opus over and over the course of its life, and it steadily gets worse." I don't know if that's true. That was my impression, because he was my professor, and that's the only opinion I'd heard of it. And I read Leaves of Grass for that class, albeit quickly. I was kind of like, really liked the first couple of pages, and then eventually I was like, okay, I'm just going to keep reading, and I just wasn't going through it lovingly enough. But I've heard people love the other editions, like, this is the beginning, the end is like the deathbed edition, and it gets bigger, it gets a lot thicker. So a lot of people say you should start with the deathbed edition because it has everything in it, and some people say you should start with this because it's the first fiery, bolt of electricity that was running through his body at the time. Look at that guy, by the way. I mean, come on. If I could only look that way someday, if I could only grow a beard. I don't get anything growing in besides these areas, so probably not going to happen. But, yeah, Leaves of Grass. I'm stoked to read it. I'd love to take it into nature. I wonder if I should even talk about which books of these should be candidates for April Adventures. Here's one. I don't really know how that would be. You know what I ought to do? I got to make a separate video in which I lay out the prompts for April Adventures, because I haven't done that yet in this video. Rats. This is what you get when you make a video that's all one take like this. But you know me. I think you sort of lose something when you do a lot of jump cuts, personally. So I like this kind of chatty vibe. You know what? I'll go ahead and show you the largest book I have, size-wise. It was a gift from Anbi, and it's The Art of Princess Mononoke. I had been hanging out with Anbi as she had a language event back in college, and she was kind of the leader of this language event, this Japanese kind of group, and she actually said, "Oh, do you want to go back? I have something I'd like to show you," or something. And my dorm, so she left the event and took me to her dorm, and I was like, "What do you have to show me?" Whatever. And I was like washing my hands, and I came out of like the bathroom after I was washing my hands, and on the bed was spread a bunch of leaves, candy, and this book, and a shirt, and it just said "Happy Birthday, Denson." And it was just this great surprise. It was so thoughtful, and she knows that I love this movie. It's my favorite movie, actually, is Princess Mononoke. If you have not seen this movie, watch it. I'll tell you about it after I finish the story. Well, I think that was really the end of the story. I had soap on my hands, and I kept trying to touch Anbi's hands with soap on them. It's a classic bit, because it feels gross, and yet all you're doing is cleaning the other person's hands. It's like perfect. Yeah, so this has special meaning to me, and so I was willing to carry it across the Pacific Ocean to have it in the same apartment in which I get to now live with that person. So how beautiful is life? Princess Mononoke is probably the most visually beautiful movie I've ever seen, personally. It's animated. This is, of course, by Hayao Miyazaki of Studio Ghibli. I've seen it many, many times. There is a 3 or 4 part documentary on a Russian website that's 480 pixels and with Russian subtitles about the making of this movie that I've watched half of before I realized I gotta just try to find the original because it's kind of hard to get through. But the content itself is amazing, but the pixels were hard to get through. And this just has not just like frames from the movie, but also like poetry that Hayao Miyazaki wrote. Starting here, actually on the first page, translated, of course, with artwork behind it, little cell art, basically from different frames in the movie. I mean, these are frames of a movie. Look at the coloring. In the documentary, it talked about like a long conversation he had with this color theorist about what color the gold should be, because of the region of Japan in which this gold would have been taken in the Edo period had a reddish tint because the earth was clay. I mean, if a person is even having that conversation, it just shows that they're taking such a caring, loving attitude towards every creative decision. And it makes sense that that kind of creative person, that kind of filmmaker, would be simultaneously a genius master of his craft and also totally miserable. So, there you go. That's Hayao Miyazaki. There's some great documentaries about him on I believe HBO. Hayao Miyazaki and the Heron is the newest one, and then the Kingdom of Dreams and Madness is another really good one about his production of The Wind Rises. So I'm a huge Studio Ghibli fan. and Princess Mononoke is just so beautiful. If you're looking for somewhere to start with Studio Ghibli, that's a really good place if you're an adult. Spirited Away is also an incredible place to begin. My Neighbor Totoro is a children's movie, and it's delightful. I didn't really get it until the second viewing, but it's so good. But they're all really, really good. All the ones by him, and of course, Grave of the Fireflies is... well, actually, we'll get to Grave of the Fireflies, because I have Hiroshima by John Hersey here. But before we get there... Well, actually, no, why not just go ahead and transition to Hiroshima? This is one of the books that I've brought here that I've already read. I don't know how to talk about this topic because it makes me so emotional. When I visited Japan for the first time, we went to the Hiroshima Peace Memorial. And in school, I may have mentioned this on this channel before, in school, we read the story of Sadako and the Thousand Paper Cranes. And Sadako was a survivor of Hiroshima. And she, I think, experienced part of the fallout that came down from the sky after the bombing and got leukemia, and had heard of a Japanese legend that if you fold 1,000 paper cranes, you can make a wish and that wish will come true. If she folded 1,000 paper cranes, I think I don't remember the story exactly, but I assume now with the intent that she could be saved from leukemia, and of course she wasn't. She died. And when I went to the Hiroshima Peace Memorial, I saw, gosh, I can't even talk about it. I saw those paper cranes, and I saw the stories of so many people, and tears were just coming down my face constantly. Something about this reaches me in a way that other World War II events don't reach me. And it's hard to explain exactly why that is. Just the evil of it. Just the evil of a weapon like that. Set against the lived experience of the people upon whom it is detonated. It will take away your faith in this species if you needed it to be taken away anymore by all the things that I talk about factory farming. War is another, you know, even in factory farming, we've never killed 100,000 people in an instant, 100,000 animals in an instant. This follows the stories of, I believe, 8 people from the moment the noiseless flash detonated in the sky on August 6, 1945, to the months afterwards, towards 40 years later until they die from, you know, the long-term effects of acute radiation poisoning. The specific evil of the atomic bomb is not even just that 100,000 people's lives can be extinguished in an instant, but that another 100,000 have DNA that has been ripped apart, literally, and are melting slowly over the course of their lives with so much suffering that cannot be explained, that cannot be understood by the rest of the society. This is it says right here on the cover, everyone able to read should read it. I think that's true, because this world is not gone. This is our world right now. We don't like to think that this could be reality again, but it very well may be the end of our reality. So, an extremely moving read, obviously very difficult. I was very emotional and cried throughout a good portion of this book. But you know, at the same time, it was an incredible experience to have had. Yeah, and of course I took it here to Japan. And when I do my job, and when it's a hard day, and I'm having a bad class because I'm an English teacher here, naturally, you know, this is a source of gratitude. Because I think about where I am, and I think about who I am as an American, and I think about who my students are as Japanese children born in the 21st century. And I think about this book, and it's incredible to think that I am where I am today in this situation. One of the reasons why reading is so amazing is the perspective it gives us. Yeah, an amazing book. A little bit heavy it got, but yeah, now we'll go, I guess let's do a 180 transition from a small book that is as bleak and heavy as bleak can be to The Uncommon Reader by Alan Bennett. My mom gave this to me right before I left, and I'd heard a lot about it just from BookTube, and I read it on the plane, and it was so great. I don't think I loved it as much as everyone else did. I just really liked it. I mean, you know, if every single person you ever hears talk about a work, loves it, the experience of that work can never be the combined joy of all those people. It can only be your own joy. So, that's the danger of overhype. But I really liked it. I'm going to give it another read later. The Queen, maybe this is a good thing, this is a good writing, but the Queen is not like a super fun, likable character in this. She's not like mean or anything. She's a queen. But I don't think she's like supposed to be some sort of Mrs. Marple, sweet old lady falls in love with the reading. She's still like a bit of an autocrat in a way, at least her staff. But it's funny. I like the contrast between the mannerly, just the manners of royalty set against the vulgarity of some of the inner thoughts of the staff and that sort of thing. If you love reading, you'll love this book. It's that simple. Okay. Next, a trifecta. The Divine Comedy by Dante Alighieri. Alighieri? I never know how to pronounce his name. Alighieri. Who knows? I found The Inferno with one of my best friends, Tatalina, when I was in Thousand Oaks at her local library at a used, at the library part where they sell books. I found this at a local library in Alabama, which is the Purgatorio. And before I came here, I said, shucks, I gotta just order this. So I ordered the third one. I only recently learned that Dante, I think, called this the Commedia, and the moniker, the Divine Commedia, was added, I think, by Boccaccio. So, here we have the Divine Comedy, famous classic of Italian middle-age literature. Tells the story of Virgil coming to Dante midway through this life, and when he finds himself in a dark wood and full of sleep, and takes him through hell, purgatory, and heaven. Never read it. I don't know if I'm even going to like it that much. I've heard that the writing is amazing, and I was specifically looking for the John Chiardi translations. I heard they're really good, and I looked up some passages, and the Alan Mandelbaum was also pretty good, but I went for the Chiardi. Plus, I found the Inferno. So, these, I really like this cover a lot. That almost could do for Paradiso, honestly. But these I don't love so much, these covers. So I wonder if I could make my own covers. Who knows? That could be a fun thing to do. If you like the Divine Comedy, let me know what I should do to prepare for this, because it is one of the few books that I brought that I really do want to read, but I don't know if I have excitement for in the same way I do for everything else. Okay, moving on. A Treasury of Asian Literature. I found this at the same library that I found the Purgatorio, and it was just like, yes, I would love to have a Treasury of Asian Literature because I'm moving to Japan and I've fallen in love with the Tale of Genji and I want to learn more about the history of the literature of the other side of the world. It says in the back, Arabia, Iran / Persia, India, China, Japan. This includes sections from the Tale of Genji, which I think it says, it's backwards to me so I can't even see it. It doesn't say here. But yeah, it includes part of the Tale of Genji, it includes part of the Bhagavad Gita, which I read recently, the Mahabharata, Tales from the 1001 Nights, and just from reading the introduction and from the philosophy of it, I really do think that this was made in the right spirit. Let me see if I can actually read you the one thing. Yeah, this was a passage that I thought was really nice to hear. This was, by the way, published in the 1950s, I think 1956. So 11 years after the First World War, just when the Western world was starting to kind of view Asia as being a significant part of the world now that things are globalizing. But of course, it was using that post-war, so it was thinking really geopolitically. And this addresses that exact kind of mindset. He's talking about remedying the ignorance the Western world has towards Asia. In the remedies we are applying to our old myopia, there is a new danger. Our nascent interest in Asia may become limited to economics and geopolitics. Even the study of Oriental languages in our schools appears to subserve those purposes. As for literature, it is perhaps the most neglected of all Oriental studies. We would not think of stating the case for Western civilization without reference to the accumulated writings of more than 2,000 years of history, yet we presume to sound out the mystery of various Asian civilizations, the roots of some of which go back even further into the past, without a knowledge of their books. Essentially saying, we can't understand China and its beliefs if we don't understand the Analects of Confucius. We can't just try to look at what they're doing right now. We have to understand their past. This has parts of the Analects. It has another great quote by Arthur Waley, who was one of the first translators of the Tale of Genji. He made the first almost complete translation. It's basically complete. I don't know why he didn't translate the Bell Cricket, that chapter, but he didn't. Arthur Waley said that there's a need for informed summarizers of specialist knowledge, ready to act as middlemen between the scholar and the public. So basically people who aren't just, Chinese language specialists who go through documents and then give the American public dry, document research, and not just, I don't even know what you'd call them, kind of just like thrill-seeking reactionary people who take the tales and translate them into kind of Victorianish English, and they don't actually have any bearing on the truth of the nature of those original Asiatic texts. Arthur Waley's like, we need guys who really like to read the Asian literature, that understand it, that are also kind of people of letters and can make good translations, and he started doing that, actually. He's kind of the foremost translator of a lot of Chinese and Japanese poetry. And I think this book is just going to be a great kind of, what's the word for it? What do they use? A seminar? I don't know. A survey of classics, some of which are known to me, some of which are not. I said in the book haul, Tyndall Book Hall's Part 3 with Adam in that video, that my gap in knowledge of China and India has made me feel like I'm missing part of the human experience. But I don't know why I only said China and India. The whole world has, history that is fascinating. But the whole world does not have, necessarily, a literary history. That's almost like its own world, its own thing. So getting back into, Arabia and Iran will be a great way to kind of think beyond just even my own conception of what Asia is as an American. And of course, I'm in Asia right now. But what is Asia? I'm in Japan. Japan's pretty darn different from China, which is, Japan and South Korea are kind of similar, but China, which is pretty darn different from Laos, which is pretty, whatever. They're all these countries have their own histories and whatnot. But you know what? Let's continue on with the Asian literature theme by going to The Pillow Book by Sei Shonagon. This is a contender for me for April Adventures. Although I don't know what prompt it would fall under, because I don't know if this is even an adventures reading for me, because I've already read The Tale of Genji, and I already know that I like Heian court period literature. But as I've said in many videos, Sei Shonagon was a contemporary of Murasaki Shikibu. The Pillow Book is a collection of thoughts. It's her diary, basically. But I think this was written with an eye cocked towards the public. I think she knew this would be read by other people, or at least by other people in her immediate circle. She was sort of an attendant of the Empress. Empress being, in this case, not such a prestigious title. This Empress was, one of many wives of the Emperor and not particularly favored. But this just contains some pretty delightful anecdotes. I've mentioned in previous videos, like the one with my dad, I talked about how there's a description of how cute it is when men come back in the morning mist, having just had an affair in the evening with another lady, and he's all excited, and he sits down at his writing table to write poetry, and maybe grab a spray off the cherry blossoms to scent the note with, and Sei Shonagon's just writing like, oh, what a sweetie. Those sorts of things, those little lived moments that are so precious to us 1,000 years later, because we're going to hear all about the conquests of so-and-so and so-and-so, and how this person, killed 100,000 people in this city, and like at a certain point, one grows weary of great figures and numbers, and one wants to hear more about what were you doing, what made you happy. This book has those little details, and gosh, I love this cover. I love the color. I love everything about it. I love the title. I love the thickness. I love the penguin classicness. Just one of the books that you have to take with you when you move to Japan. And then, to continue on with our theme of Asian literature, Japanese literature. The Narrow Road to the Interior, also known as The Narrow Road to the Deep North, by Matsuo Basho. This book is so cool. This is a collection of, well, how should I put it? Back in the day, when haiku was popular, Basho actually was one of the people who was instrumental in popularizing haiku. these haiku poets would go on journeys and then write travelogues where over the course of the journey they would write a bunch of haiku based on things that happened to them. Maybe they see a deer in the forest while a butterfly passes, or they comment upon the trickling rocks, or the trickling stream through the rocks, and some sort of poetic observation about the nature of mortality or whatever it is. And then would sort of take all of the poetry that he had written over the course of that journey, sort of make a greatest hits, select the best ones, and then fill in the gaps between it with beautiful prose about the journey, often with the background emotional theme of mono no aware, which is this Japanese term that sort of signifies the beauty and the poignance of transience, of life passing, and how beautiful it is to be alive, and yet, oh, how sad is it that the cherry blossoms must fall and the leaves... I sound like I'm being mocking, but I don't mean it to be that way. It's very... well, maybe I do mean it to be a little mocking, because sometimes it's almost melodramatic, and I think Murasaki Shikabue thinks it's melodramatic, and she's ironic, so she's giving me some of that mocking tone. But sometimes it's really beautiful, and sometimes you're like, damn, dude, I really am mortal. Like, I look different than I looked when I started this BookTube channel, because I'm not a spring chicken, guys. I mean, I'm getting old. And Basho, heaven knows, look at his posture. He was an old man by the time he started this. He actually thought, and I read this, by the way, I've already read this, and this is going to be something I probably make a video about for April Adventures. He thought when he started this adventure, and really believed that there was a good chance he would die on the journey. He was already pretty sick by the time he had started. And Basho, to continue the thread of this whole travelogue theme, of all those poets who wrote those sorts of travelogues, the greatest hits haiku combined with the prose poetry, he was the best. This translation by Sam Hamill I've heard is pretty good, and this contains other things in this. This contains the Travelogue of Broken Bones, great title. This was really fun to read. I've been feeling trapped in this concrete jungle of the city I'm in. I'm in Nagoya, Japan, which I like in some ways, but I just think I don't like cities, so no offense to Nagoya, but I live in a city. So I went and hiked a mountain called Mount Tado-san, and I brought this with me, and I just read it out there. And while I was out there, actually while I was sitting at a train station on the way back, I read one of the haiku, and it made me cackle. I guffawed when I read that haiku. It was so funny. And that happened to me once reading The Tale of Genji. So, Japanese poetry is so beautiful. It's so focused on the mono no aware and everything else, and being delicate and also following rules and that sort of thing, that when the poet subverts that with just a big joke, it hits so hard. So the Narrow Road to the Interior has already done that for me. It was amazing. I was a huge fan. Okay, moving on. Let's see. Okay, I'll start with some Romans. Here we have, I don't know, okay, here's some, you know what, this next theme of books are going to be books that I brought that maybe I could have brought different books. I don't regret it, of course, because I have them and now I'm happy to have them, but they weren't, everything I've showed you so far was I really thought about this and thought about what I wanted. And these were books that were sort of just around near the end of my packing phase that happened to be there that I was like, you know what, I could take that if I have room. So I took them. The first is the Aeneid by Virgil. My conception of this is that it's not as fun as Homer's Iliad or Odyssey. I spoke about this in the Greatest Book Haul, book haul to end all book hauls with my dad, episode 2, which I love. I love watching my dad because he's an amazing person. This, I don't know what about this doesn't excite me. But then right before I left, I read the back and I read a piece of it and I felt really excited. So I was like, okay, maybe I do need this. It just felt right because I also brought with me works that will go along with it. Also, it's just a beautiful pagan classic. It's in the Robert Fagles translation. It's got the Bernard Knox introduction. Like I said, the theme of this is that it's translations that I like, and it's classic text. I'm kind of getting my canon education right now, in a way. I'm still going through these classics and really loving them. So, I thought, okay, I'll bring it. Okay, fine. Okay, Virgil. Then we have Don Juan by Lord Byron. My connection to this book has been that throughout the course of my life, a certain stanza has been with me because my mom loved that stanza. And, I really ought to have written it down or earmarked it before this. There's just no way that I would ever be able to find it in here. But basically it lists a bunch of different people in their professions when their professions are going very well. And an Arab with a stranger for a guest is one of them, I remember. Or like a babe suckling its mother's teat, or just like things, the situations in which these people be very happy. And it ends with this couplet, but no such joy are they reaping as those who watch over whom they love while sleeping. I butchered it, but it's something along those lines, and it's just that idea of when you're watching someone you love sleep, whether their mouth is open, they're drooling, and they just look like a sleeping pig. By the way, I love pigs, so I don't ever use the word derogatorily, but, people look like pigs sometimes, and pigs look like people, versus sometimes your loved one looks like a sleeping cherub, a beautiful angel, mouth closed, breathing through their nose, the moonlight is cast across their eyelashes. Either way, when you're just next to them while they're sleeping, there's something that feels so beautiful and loving and innocent. And also, of course, there's the helplessness of a sleeping person that draws your affection from you. And Lord Byron captured that. So I've always kind of known, okay, Don Juan. By the way, I said in my book called Don Juan, I think it's pronounced Don Juan within the context of this because he rhymes it with something like Ewan. And so we can infer that the name is Don Juan. Don Juan, of course, being the literary hero, the figure who goes around womanizing, and this is a turn on that where all the women kind of seduce him. I read the introduction to this, in which I think he just bashes Wordsworth, and the thing that happened to me with Moby Dick happened here, where I started reading it, and it made me laugh out loud. I guess I'll read it real quick to y'all. In a note or preface, I forget which, by Mr. William Wordsworth, this is, by the way, Lord Byron writing, by Mr. Wordsworth, to a poem, the subject of which, as far as it is intelligible, is the remorse of an unnatural mother for the destruction of a natural child. The courteous reader is desired to extend his usual courtesy so far as to suppose that the narrative is narrated by the captain of a merchantman or small trading vessel, lately retired upon a small annuity to some inland town, etc., etc. I quote from memory, but conceive the above to be the sense, as far as there is sense of the note or preface to the aforesaid poem, as far as it is a poem. I mean, he's just bashing Wordsworth. The poem, or the production to which I allude, is that which begins with, "There is a thorn, it is so old." And then the poem informs all who are willing to be informed that its age was such as to leave great difficulty in the conception of its ever having been young at all, which is as much as to say either that it was coeval with the creator of all things, or that it had been born old. It was thus appropriately, by antithesis, devoted to the commemoration of a child that died young. That is so funny to me. You know me, guys. I love love, I love life, and I love kindness above all. But sometimes it's funny to be, well, teasing. Although this isn't even teasing. This is just this is thrashing. That was so funny to me that I knew that I had to read this because it's so satirical. The only thing about this that is cause for concern is that I hear that this is a highly allusive work, and I'm not that well read. So if he's talking about this and that book, I probably haven't read it, and I'm probably not going to get the joke. And I know enough about Wordsworth's lyrical poetry to feel the humor in that. And I like Wordsworth well enough. So I got the humor of that. But I don't know, if he starts going on about other poets that I don't know if I'm going to get the humor. We'll see. But I brought it. Don Juan. And then, the only Victorian novel I brought. Can you guess what it is? Probably not. It's by the most famous Victorian author there is, so you already know that's Charles Dickens. I think he was the most famous. This is probably his, this is the book of his that you'd say, oh, this is the erudite man's Charles Dickens. It's Bleak House. And I love Penguin Classics, but for so many of Dickens' works, they chose to just blow up images of the great illustrations. I love the illustrations for the covers, and they don't serve that well as covers, I think. They do better as illustrations throughout the work. What's the guy's name? Is it Foz, P-H-O-Z, or something like that? Whenever I look at these booktube videos, I realize I never quite get it right. But, these illustrations I do love. Charles Dickens seems like a writer who I'm going to get along with just fine. The things that people don't like about Charles Dickens, the sense of glee at his own writing, the twee nature of his writing, don't bother me at all, and I actually like it. I like it when he's kind of rubbing his hands together like, ooh, this part's going to be great. Because so far, what I've only ever read A Christmas Carol, so what do I know? Everything I've read by him has been great. The writing of Christmas Carol is so good, and it's actually crazy that I'm talking about this with you guys right now because yesterday, one of the things I ended up having to do at work is shred a bunch of papers, and it's this kind of gap part of our school year where there's no students, so I could actually kind of listen to an audiobook while I did that. And I'd read the first 2 staves of A Christmas Carol with friends back home before I left, and I'd already finished the other book on tape that I was listening to. I listened to The Martian by Andy Weir, which I liked. That was pretty good. And I was like, I'll finish A Christmas Carol. And so I did, and the writing, oh my God. I like The Martian, like I said. It was a good story. But the writing of A Christmas Carol just was perfect for me. It was so joyous, so infectious. It's also like the theme of life that I love so much, which is just like feeling a burst of love and joy and feeling kind of like I can do anything to spread this joy and love. All I have to do is naturally express the love which I feel. I love that theme. It's so good. I want to live by that as much as I can. And hey, we all, have problems. We all have bad days. I'm experiencing chronic pain right now as I speak, but like, that's fine. You can still, I think, always find joy in life. And I think Dickens does that. But he does that more in like, Great Expectations and David Copperfield and Bleak House. The foggy London Bleak House. This is when things get a little bit more mature, so I hear. I could have brought anything. I don't know why I really brought Bleak House instead of bringing David Copperfield or bringing A Tale of Two Cities or Great Expectations, which are probably better introductions. But it may be because this is stupid. It may be because it's so large. I had this thing of like, okay, if I bring a book to Japan, it better be a big one because I better be getting my money's worth. But I could either bring a big book or 3 really great smaller books. I don't know what I was thinking. But I brought it. And there's a really great booktuber who I love on BookTube, Books and Things. I don't know what her name is, but she's a Charles Dickens super fan. And I watched a bunch of her videos, her tier rankings on Dickens, and her joy is infectious. And Dickens's joy is infectious. I had a dream that I read a bunch of Dickens and liked them. So I brought Bleak House. In terms of the whole theme of like when I want to read these books, it's gotta be like a November book, right? Like it's gotta be a wintry. I mean, I don't get fog in the city, but a foggy book. So yeah, let me know. I've also saw a BookTube comment on a video that said that Bleak House swept me away. So I thought, well, if it swept this random guy away, it's gonna sweep me along too, right? So there you go, Bleak House. All right, one more chunker. This book I brought mainly because I love the cover. Not really. It's The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandre Dumas. One thing that you love to see when you get a used book are the white lines. No sarcasm, because it means someone read this. Although, wait a minute. Someone read this far, I guess. They didn't read the very end. So maybe you don't want to see. Maybe you want to see it all the way through. I've mentioned this many times on this channel, but I read this in an abridged version for school and loved it, and then read the unabridged later and didn't like it at all. Only to find that unabridged version was actually just a slightly larger abridged version because I saw this kind of edition in a bookstore and I was like, oh, so this is really the big one. Everyone on BookTube knows that for some reason lots of people are reading this book and loving it, or were loving it. I don't know if that phase is over, which is what was making kind of headlines, because it's huge. It's a huge book. So it's unnatural that so many people would want to read a huge book, right? But I guess the whole idea is that this book is plot galore. And, most people love plot. I guess that's why people don't love Moby Dick so much, because Moby Dick is style galore. I don't know. I like the story a lot. I'm going to have to see if I like the plot. I'm going to have to start reading the Canterbury Tales. So sometimes when I'm in bed, if I've been reading the Canterbury Tales all day, in the same way you have songs stuck in your head, I have the feeling of like, iambic pentameter couplets in my head. So sorry that it comes out sometimes. But I have to see if I like the translation. I have to see if I like the feeling of Dumas. I know that Dumas wasn't really the sole author of this. I know that there was another guy who kind of actually came up, I think, with a lot of the plot and did the research. And the Dumas was sort of like the craftsman guy who actually could spin the yarn. That doesn't bother me at all, as long as it's good. So we'll see. This could be at any time, kind of like maybe also winter, maybe later on. I don't know. But I can see myself digging into this and really loving it. So we'll see. Have you read The Count of Monte Cristo? Do you like it? It could be an adventure. It's kind of an adventurous book. Like I said, I'll do the prompts later. Okay, next. I'm having so much fun making this video right now. Like, I don't know how to tell. I like making most of my BookTube videos, but this one especially. I love all these books. I love talking to you guys. I feel great. Besides the pain, the aforementioned pain that I'm experiencing, but I'm used to that. Who cares? That's not my attitude. It matters, but yes, it's fine. But yeah, this book is the Iliad by Homer. Of course I brought the Iliad by Homer, and of course I brought the Robert Fagles translation with the Bernard Knox introduction. It's actually interesting that Bernard Knox's introductions are so famous that it's put on the front cover of the Aeneid, and even on the side. Isn't that crazy? So Bernard Knox, it's word's gotten around that he's the guy for your kind of ancient Greece and Rome introductions. Apparently it's the best book of all time. I read sections. Oh, I did read the whole thing? I don't know if I read the whole thing. I don't even remember, so clearly I have to read it again. I read this in 9th grade. I really liked it. I mentioned on this channel that on that first book haul video, which is where I hauled this. I got most of these on that library haul. I mentioned in that video that Hector's death really moved me. Spoiler! Sorry, that was a spoiler, but I guess it's the Iliad. Yeah. Oof, I can't believe I just did that. I'm so sorry if I spoiled the Iliad for you, but I think that's fine, because you're supposed to know that if you go into this book. The whole point is that you know the story. It's just how it's told. I'm really excited to get back into this. I think it'll be like I don't really want to read the Bible that much. I mean, I'm going to get struck by lightning for saying that, but I don't really want to read the Bible that much. It doesn't really, fascinate me in the same way that, reading this for pleasure would. The Bible seems more like an investment of, if I read the Bible, I'm really going to enjoy reading, Chaucer and Melville more, because they love to allude to the Bible all the time. They just freely quote it. This is a canon origin work that I really do want to read. What do I say about the Iliad? I guess, read it if you're interested in ancient Greece, because it's kind of like the text for everything. The thing that I think is interesting about this book, is that it's, part of the epic cycle. It's only a fragment. It's the rage of Achilles. It's not the fall of Troy. Fall of Troy doesn't even happen in this book. It's not, the launching of the ships. It's not the abduction of Helen by Paris. It's just the rage of Achilles. And everyone, at the time who was gathered around ye old mead hall or whatever, that's Anglo-Saxon, ye old wine coliseum, would have known the whole story. So the fact that Hector dies is probably not so much a spoiler. And then, of course, I brought the Odyssey along too. I did read this thing in full, and I really liked it. I read it in... Oh, also, wait. I read the Iliad in 8th grade. I read this in 9th grade, and I really liked it. I read the last part of this book running around my house in circles because it was so exciting. And this is the Robert Fitzgerald translation. I took this copy of the Odyssey, this exact copy, to the Sierra Nevadas on a backpacking trip. I put it in the top of my backpack in the brain, and it never once left that place. And I lugged it around through off-trail, craggy mountainsides down into valleys until it snowed overnight in October in the Sierras through the snow. That was quite the Odyssey. But not for the literary experience. I didn't even open a page. So I need to remedy that and read it now. You know what? Oh, gosh, I really could read the Odyssey for April Adventures, except I really want to read the Iliad first. So, who knows? I'll read the Iliad first. Maybe I'll save it for later. I have a lot of contenders for April Adventures. Continuing on the theme, the Golden Ass. I know, guys. I know it was my nickname in high school, but we don't have to talk about that. This is the only complete novel, I think, from Rome, and it's the Robert Graves translation, which is the best one as far as I've been told by you on BookTube, you specifically watching this video right now, Jeremy. If your name's Jeremy, that would be crazy. This seems really funny to me because the whole plot is that Lucius tries to turn himself into a bird and then turns himself into a donkey instead. That's awesome. T.E. Lawrence carried it in its original Latin, of course, in his saddlebag throughout the period of the Arab Revolt, and it was Lawrence who first introduced the book to the poet Robert Graves. That's really cool. So I brought it. I could have brought the Seven Pillars of Wisdom. God, I have a beautiful copy of that. That would have been smart, but I didn't. Okay, we have some really cool books to finish things up. Before we finish things up with four big, loving books, I'm going to go through three miscellaneous things that aren't really quite literature in the way that we understand it. But, there's actually another book that I could bring alongside this. But I brought them anyways, and they're books, so they count. One is a dictionary, because I'm an idiot. I brought a dictionary to Japan with me all the way over the Pacific Ocean, because I can't look up words on my computer. I don't know. I like a lot not having technology near me while I read. I like just having this, and me, myself, and I, I like this dictionary a lot. I got it for like $1 in college, and it's been with me through lots of other books, and I just felt like, okay, I'm gonna bite the bullet and bring it with me. And I've looked up some words in it, so far, I would say money well spent, but really the only thing that was spent was stress hormones and Haneda Airport, probably parts of my spinal vertebra from how heavy that backpack was. But, great book. You definitely got to read this front to back if you really want to get the full dictionary experience. Highly recommend. And then Japanese folktales for learners. I'm learning Japanese, obviously. Well, I guess not obviously. A lot of people, in fact, I met someone today who doesn't really speak any Japanese, who's been here for a while. And you can do that. Obviously it's not the way I want to go about things. I actually feel like really unhappy not speaking Japanese. It's a huge motivating factor for me, feeling like an imbecile. Because, I learned German in college, and I studied abroad in Germany, and I, didn't really feel at all like a foreigner. Well, of course I felt like a foreigner, but I didn't really feel at all like distance from people, whereas here I feel very distanced. Not only because the culture is further away from me, not only because I don't eat animal products, and that's the animal product to everyone in Japan, so that always makes me feel distanced, but also the language thing is I feel so rude. I feel like such an American not speaking Japanese. So I've been studying. I study kanji every single day. I studied it today already. I need to do more speaking and listening. And my cousin, when she found out that I was falling in love / already in love with a person from Japan, very wisely gave this to me for Christmas. So these are folk tales that are very, very famous and popular in Japan. Let's test out. I think so. This kanji, I think it's like tail, like muzakashi. Wait, no, muzakashi is difficult. Heck, I'm blowing it on camera. The way they say once upon a time in Japanese is this character and then the repetition kanji symbol, and it's like mukashi. That's it. So this is mukashi, and then it says banashi de, and then I don't know what that means, but I know that radical is the child radical, and then bu nihongo. So I can read some of these characters even though I don't know what it means. That's how far along I am. Japanese, for those of you who don't know, is written in 3 writing systems. The native script is called hiragana. There's 50 characters in hiragana that each represent a sound. The sound being what we would consider in English a consonant attached to a vowel. So like so, ka, ni, to, tsu. All of those are unique things. So for instance, if we look here, that's shi, that's ta, so like shita, mashita. That's one. The other writing system is called katakana. It's a duplicate. It's all the same sounds, but different writing. So it's like if you had to learn the alphabet twice, but with completely different symbols that look nothing like A, B, C, D, G. So it's 100 characters to learn already that to our American brains are squiggles. And then the third writing system is kanji. Kanji are Chinese characters that have been adapted into the Japanese language. Originally, written Japanese was almost exclusively in kanji. And that was simplified by like a priest long ago, like a monk, into these kind of syllabic hiragana, katakana. But the bulk of the language is still constructed mostly out of those Chinese characters. So if you take a look, what you see here, because this is a book for language learners, is you get the English on one side, and on the other side, you get all the kanji. So like, let's see if I recognize any of these kanji. Yeah, so like right here, that kanji right there, underneath my thumb, that's the kanji for woman. Right? So I know what that means because I've been studying the meanings, but the reading is different. But it says right above it, it has it in the other syllabic script. So if you actually know how to read hiragana katakana, you can actually kind of read this even though you don't know the kanji. So right now it says no bowl. I don't know what it means, but I could look that up now. That's what makes Japanese so difficult, is that you don't know the readings of these kanji. You don't know how they're supposed to be read. So if you think about in English, like O-U-G-H, what sound is that? You don't know. If you just saw O-U-G-H, you wouldn't really know how it's read. You know the reading by the context if you're a native English speaker, because if it starts with a T, the reading is uff. But if it starts with TH, the reading is O. So here we have a bunch of squiggles, O-U-G-H, that have different sounds that you make. All kanji are like that. Different squiggles, but they make different sounds. So the same squiggle might be Yama, that's mountain. But if it's at the end, like Fuji-san, then it's San. So San, Yama, don't sound anything alike. How do you know how to read it one way or another? That's what makes it hard. So I have this book, and I'm learning it. Thank you for taking my Japanese class. I really like Japanese. I think it's a really beautiful language. It's really hard, of course. It's so much harder than learning German for me, just because illiteracy is the starting point, whereas literacy is the starting point for pretty much every single European language. Of course, Slavic languages have a different alphabet, but at least they're an alphabet. Hiragana and katakana are not really alphabets. They're like syllabaries. Syllabaries? Is that a word? They don't really represent individual sounds. They represent kind of a whole unit, like so. That's clearly that's two sounds, right? Anywho, it's tough, but it's awesome. And then I have a book on how to remember those kanji that are kind of like memory devices for how to kind of get through it, which I have been loving. It's actually really fun to learn kanji with remembering kanji. Thank you, James Hasek. So that's technically a book. There's actually also textbooks that I brought here. I'm not going to show them to you. They're just Japanese textbooks. Okay. I'll show you this. My mom gave this to me for everyone for Christmas. This is Mindfulness on the Go. Simple meditation practices you can do anywhere by Jan Chosen Bays. I love meditating. I'm a huge fan of meditating. I like that. Well, mindful meditating specifically. There's no such thing as clearing your mind, as far as I can tell. Maybe some people can do it with years of practice. It's not clear to me why that's even a goal you want to achieve. Why you would sacrifice so much of your life to achieve a clearing of the mind, as opposed to mindfulness meditation, which is totally centered on being aware and noticing the thoughts that are happening in your head all the time. Don't know how you could clear them. And just not being judgmental about them. And even, possibly, looking at them kindly. Any thought that passes your brain. So as to make yourself come to the realization that you are not necessarily the stream of thoughts in your head. I don't know what you are. We're a bunch of things. But you're not just the stream of thoughts in your head. But if we go about day-to-day life is happening, we start to feel like that. And then if those string of thoughts becomes negative or bad, we feel like a negative person. And that's not necessarily true. Thoughts pop into your head. It's not clear that any of us are actually making thoughts happen. Have a genius thought right now. Write a genius line right now. You can't make yourself. They just kind of come to you. All thoughts are like that. And mindfulness and meditating really kind of takes you to a very pleasant, easy-going space that's not, there's no pressure, there's no, my mind's not clear. Excuse my language, I normally never curse, but that's the way I feel when I first started to meditate and I didn't know what I was doing. I just don't think that that's a good way to go about it. If you can do it, great for you. I never found any peace with that, and everyone I've ever spoken to about meditation who thought meditating was about clearing your mind had a terrible experience with it. But mindfulness is just about, I notice my breathing, I notice my thoughts, I notice the way my feet feel. Doing that for 20 minutes a day slows you down, makes you feel good. I did it today, right there in the sunlight. Maybe that's the reason why I feel so good right now. Who knows? And this book that my mom gave me is just by a person who's interested in Buddhism, or I think she is Buddhist, and she's lives in a monastery, and different exercises to do. It's self-help, and what I already said, I'm skeptical of self-help. But if you want to do it, do it. Use your non-dominant hand. I already kind of do that because I got tendonitis in my right arm, so I kind of use my left hand for a lot of things, and like brushing my teeth and stuff. When you're eating, just eat. I love that, It doesn't have to be too deep. It doesn't have to be like, bro, you got to do this or else you're missing out on life. But these are really pleasant. And I think that if one went through life just being more mindful, just being more aware in that kind of smiling sense, smiling mindfulness at whatever's happening to you, and it has to be genuine. Don't be a psychopath and kind of smile at yourself in that way. That's not going to do you any good. You don't want to become a fake person. But if you actually had like a genuine, oh, you know what? I want to feel happy, or not even happy. I want to feel loving. I want to feel compassionate. And I'm going to kind of put that attitude towards myself and towards everything around that I can, whenever I can, just by noticing things. Man, I think if everyone did that, good things would happen, And I'll take this opportunity to plug Compassion for Animals. So if you're out there, have compassion for animals, please, through all your decisions. Okay, moving on. Where should I begin? I should end... Okay, I'll do this. Moving on, the next book we have is Don Quixote by Cervantes. I'm really excited to read Don Quixote by Cervantes. It's a book whose blurb is a blurb by Dostoevsky, who called it Profound and Powerful, the Final and Greatest Utterance of the Human Mind. I thought that the Brothers Karamazov was the final and greatest utterance of the human mind, but apparently the guy who wrote that book thinks it's this book. So I gotta keep going down the line. I wonder what Cervantes thought was the final and most profound thought of the human mind. Of course, that's a ridiculous thing to say, but it's a cool thing if it's by a great author, right? I think that Don Quixote will be probably really enjoyable in this translation because John Rutherford, who's translated this, is famous for having translated a lot of the humor. And because this is a work I want to read more than once, I'm happy to read his translation first because I've heard the Edith Grossman translation is better. So I'll read this one first, get all the jokes, and then read the Edith Grossman and transcend completely. I think that Don Quixote is famous also for having like a better first half than second half. And the introduction of this book spoiled it for me, so that's fun. I don't know why Penguin Classics is so bad about spoiling books, but it is. Yeah, I can't wait to read it. It's big, it's thick. I think it's a summer book. I think that's what it's going to be for me. And yeah, let's move on. I'm going to put this here so I don't forget it. Next, we have the only piece of nonfiction besides, Hiroshima and the, I guess, Montaigne, Princess Mononoke. Yeah, almost all of this is fiction, which is interesting. Dictionary. Yeah. I don't know what we call the Bible. I don't know what to say. I don't want to get John Lennon 10 years from now. The Bible is great. Next we have The Ancestor's Tale. Kind of the opposite of the Bible. Yeah, this book, this is a book, this is so cool actually. My dad gave me this book long ago, right when I actually was questioning Christianity, being born in Alabama. I mean, I was never really firmly Christian, but I started to really feel like, hey, I think a lot of this is just like not true. And it is not like leading people towards goodness and kindness. I think it does for a lot of people, and it can. But I was seeing so many ways in which it wasn't, and feeling like, this is really bad. So I was really disillusioned. And I had the internet, so I was watching, Christopher Hitchens videos. I was watching Richard Dawkins videos. I was that guy. I'm sorry. I hope I'm better now. I hope I'm more chill and fun now than the militant atheist. But my dad saw me in that phase, and I think he gave me The Selfish Gene, of which I read the first chapter and got bored. And then he gave me this. And I didn't even try to read this, because look at it, man. It's so big. It's just so it just goes to show that even if you're a cool, suave guy like me, you may have been a little punk as a kid who didn't read the books your dad gave you. And I didn't read The Ancestor's Tale. And then I got into BookTube, and Steve loves The Ancestor's Tale. It's in his little book room, I'm pretty sure. He talks about it all the time. He said something along the lines of it has a profound insight on every page. So I brought it. And I read Sapiens by Yuval Noah Harari, which I really enjoyed, though I know it has been criticized heavily for reducing ideas and for throwing off in a sentence a subject which is, for some people, the entire focus of their professional lives. That's obviously infuriating if you spend your life studying some sort of facet of, prehistoric man, only for it in the most popular science, pop science book of the day to get a sentence that is kind of inaccurate. Sapiens definitely has flaws, but I liked it a lot. And I think that this book will be sort of like the big boy version of Sapiens. Or at least, this isn't Sapiens about humans, but the big boy version of like how things came about. And, for all that I've been talking about my disillusionment with humanity in this video, I think it'll be nice to take a step back and start looking at life more than just humanity. Because we are a very, very, very small part of life on Earth. We are occupied the time on this planet for a fraction of the time that was occupied by even just different species of human. Like Homo erectus was around before we genocided them. Yikes! They were around like for 20 times the amount of time we've been, and then of course the dinosaurs were here for way longer. So life is more interesting to me and a better subject of study for me right now than humanity. The only humans who I like are the people watching this video right now, and actually that's probably true. And I like everyone I meet. I just think that we're stupid and crazy and we hurt animals too much. That's really what it comes down to. We knowingly hurt animals too much. That's what I hate. But I really like the people in my own life a lot. And I like every individual that I meet. I just think humanity as a whole doesn't know what it's doing. Or it's not even trying to do anything. It's just going along like some sort of virus, like some sort of ant colony, without any thought whatsoever towards, goodness and love and kindness and compassion. Those are auxiliary things to the greater systems instead of being the focus. And you know me, I love love. So I think that this book, even though you would never guess it, will help me find more love for life. So, yeah. Actually, maybe you could guess that. Who knows? Okay. We have 3 things left. 3 things in this long video. But, like I said, man, this video is awesome. This is so far a great video. Sometimes I'm yapping on BookTube and I'm talking. I'm like, oh, my God, what am I even saying, bro? But now I feel good. Now I feel like this is going well. Maybe I'm coming into my own. War and Peace, baby. I brought War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy. I bet you're wondering right now how any of this fit in my luggages. My dad gave this to me in 2013. And there's a picture of me reading this on a swing that we had on our porch. And if I can find it and I remember, then I'm going to put it right here, right now. So if I'm talking to you right now, you can either see this picture, if I found it, maybe I didn't find it, or you're just seeing the image of War and Peace, which is, I think, a good cover. This is Larissa Volokhonsky and Richard Pavio translation. I loved their translation of the Brothers Karamazov. Some people take issue with it. Some people find it, too close to the original, and they find that, it's less readable. I didn't feel that way at all. Or maybe they just don't like the style. I don't know. But I never started with Constance Garnett. I haven't gone down any other kind of translators for Russian literature so far, besides Paul Foote for The Hero of Our Time. But this book seems okay. Sometimes you just kind of have a feeling whether you're gonna like a book or not. I think I'm really gonna like War and Peace because I love Anna Karenina. I reread The Death of Ivan Ilyich recently, and it was so good. The Death of Ivan Ilyich, you just gotta read in one sitting. Like if you're watching this right now and you feel like you're in a slump. And you also are afraid of dying, or maybe you're not afraid. I don't know when you should read this book. I don't know. You should read this book because it's a novella. It's so good. This is a bit longer than a novella, 1 or 2 pages longer, and it concerns the Napoleonic invasion of Russia and about 500 people's reaction to that. And I've just heard that it's so fun and readable, and also has this really interesting philosophy section at the end that some people hate and some people love. I'll probably love because I'm just, a stoic dude bro guy. Not really. I don't know what I am, by the way. Randy Ray made a great video about Epicureanism and Stoicism. Needless to say, I don't see myself through the lens of either of those 2 philosophies, but it would seem like I really don't like Stoicism and that I like Epicureanism better. But maybe in practice, I'm more like a stoic sort of guy with an Epicurean attitude. Because I do believe that there's such a thing as goodness, and I do believe in truth and all that stuff, but I think Stoicism is kind of a trap for a lot of young guys. It's a subtle psychology thing. I don't like how it creates a tribal animosity towards people who criticize Stoicism. I don't like the emotional suppression of Stoicism. I think that there are a lot of Stoics who actually misunderstand Stoicism and end up doing something really good with it by misunderstanding it. Anyways, I think... Why did I bring that up? I think that I'll really enjoy this book. It's really big. It's a winter read, I think. It's very snowy. Like I said, I love Anna Karenina. And, it's so sweet that my dad gave me this copy, and here it's followed me all the way across my journey through life. And even if I died tomorrow on a train, just in a crash, and don't get to read any of these books, I'm so happy that I've gotten to bring them here and enjoy their presence and live. So far, so good. Okay. We have 2 things left. The last physical book I'll show you, the Norton Shakespeare 3rd edition. You have to bring Shakespeare with you wherever you go. Am I right? I read some of the preface yesterday in the introduction. This has a digital card, basically, where you can like register. And my old school email still worked, so I was able to register for this. Shakespeare is so fun. It's so fun to read. He's so alive. He's so in touch with humanity. He's so in touch with how you are feeling right now. It's insane reading Shakespeare. He makes you feel an emotion, and then is able to make you understand that emotion that you are now feeling. Crazy. It's amazing that he can do that. I haven't even read that much Shakespeare. I don't even know where I'd begin. I read a little bit of A Midsummer Night's Dream, knowing I wouldn't read the whole thing. I just took it down off the shelf and was reading a little bit of it, and was astounded with how enjoyable it was, and knew that I had to bring this to Japan. So I'm really excited. Where should I start with Shakespeare? Randy Ray's recommended sonnets. I want to start with a play, I think. I could reread a play that I read before, like Macbeth, Hamlet, or Romeo and Juliet, or something like that. Maybe I'll do is it A Midsummer Night's Dream? I don't know. Maybe I'll do that one when it warms up a little bit. It's spring right now, so I'm into spring books, I guess. Like, I'm reading the Canterbury Tales because Juan the Dapper with the short of Sutta, the Drach the March hath passed the Rota. I gotta do the March, April general prologue. But I feel like there's a lot of Shakespeare that would work for different times of the year. Obviously, A Winter's Tale I could do for later in the year. If I feel like, I don't know, killing my uncle, which is how we all feel in the autumn, I could read Hamlet. Who knows? Stephen Greenblatt is a great guy. I actually don't know if he's a great guy, but I really like what I've seen of him on YouTube talking about Montaigne and Shakespeare. I think he's very interesting. Shakespeare just seems like probably one of the greatest, oh wow, this is maybe April Adventures, the greatest literary adventures you could ever have. A feast. Even the critics, the people who come up with the critical apparatus in these books, when they write about him, they're filled with a childlike glee, I should say. And that's the thing that's mostly missing from critics, so it's great to see that someone's inspiring them. And that's all my physical books, which is crazy. And the very last thing I'll show you, needless to say, you can already guess it if I say it's not a physical book. Da-da-da. It's 100,000 books, or whatever it wants to be. It's a Kobo. It's a nifty little device. It's what a sane person would have brought if they were only going to bring one book. I have read 2 books on this since I've been here. I've read The Murder of Roger Ackroyd. So good. And, oh my gosh, I read The Code of the Wooster. So good. Like, one of the best books I've ever read, ever. I gotta make videos on those. And, I'm probably going to download The Wind in the Willows on this and read that with Anbi and maybe Adam. Adam, you're probably not watching this because I don't think you watch my channel. But if you are watching this, then I want to read The Wind in the Willows with you, and I'll use my Kobo for it. I love the Kobo. I love taking it into my bedroom at night and reading it while I'm sideways because it actually, you don't have to hold the pages up and stuff. I don't take it to work, though, because, if I have a break or an off time at work, I don't think it looks good to be on a screen in the Japanese workforce, but having a book, it's more acceptable. But it's a beautiful thing. It's a great thing to have. And, I think that pretty much wraps up everything that I brought with me to Japan. One take, an hour and a half long video. That was so fun to make. I've wanted to talk to someone about these books for so long. That it makes sense that I would end up talking with my BookTube friends. So I hope you enjoyed. If you were to go abroad, what books would you bring with you from your library? Comment to me 3. Comment 3 books if you have any ideas. And then just think about it. Because it's like the question if you were, if you had to save one bookshelf in a fire or save some books in a fire or whatever. That's kind of what I did. I had to think about that. Because I don't know when I'm going home. I might die here, like I said. I like to take the attitude of an easygoing, hey, I could die at any moment. Not to be morbid, but it's, that's life. It happens. So, these could be the last books ever. You never know. I'm really happy with my choices. Right now, Canterbury Tales, Moby Dick Read-Along, Montaigne. 3 huge hits. I pretty much like all 3 of them a lot. Sometimes I really love Montaigne. Moby Dick's obviously my favorite book. The Canterbury Tales is so good. I mean, my reading life is just bliss. It's blessed and it's bliss. Obviously, I wish I had more time working a full-time job, and I want to work on music more. But this has been probably the single greatest source of pleasure outside of time spent with Anbi that I've had in Japan has been reading. And I would have never guessed that, 3-4 years ago, when I didn't love reading so much. So yeah, thank you for watching. I love books. I love talking to you guys. And I'll see you again in probably like an April Adventures announcement video. Oh, you know what I'll do? I'll do this. I'll make a video announcing April Adventures and upload it before this, even though I'll film it afterwards. And then upload this video where I have all these books and talk about the prompts in the original video. So if you're seeing this, you've already seen the April Adventures video. Well, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye, everyone. Okay, so I just wrapped up finishing these kind of videos that I've made for this day, and I realized that there is sort of one more book that I didn't talk about that I brought with me to Japan that just happens to be the single thing that I would save if there were a fire. And it's not a book that any of you have. It's a one-of-a-kind, and it's this. It's a moleskin notebook that I took to Japan last time I came here, so that would have been 2 years ago, to study some Japanese and kind of write down phrases, and I accidentally left it there. And when I came back to America, Anbi had basically, she gave it back to me as this gift, and she'd made a scrapbook out of it. So I won't really show you, of course, because it's got personal stuff. I guess I'll show you one page of just adventures that we've had together as like an anniversary gift. And it is the book that I probably pick up the most. And I love it to death, and it's the best thing on my shelf. And it would be an incomplete video if I didn't mention that that's the best book I own in Japan. Are the ones that mean something personally, because any old text, the Odyssey or the Bible or the Ancestor's Tale, we can replace, but there's no replacing that. So yeah, that's the end of the video. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.